So last Thursday and Friday, I had an opportunity to spend a lot of time down on the border at the Rio Grande Valley sector of our border with Mexico. And of course, Rio Grande Valley, that's Texas. That's of course the river that separates the countries, and it's by far the busiest sector of the border. And it's, as you know, a very vast border. I saw a lot of things, and much of what I saw sort of, I would have to say, just sort of verified what I'd already heard. But there's no way to really understand the severity of the problem unless you've been there and you've seen it. For example, Thursday evening, I went for a ride along, and that was at about 10 o'clock, between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night, obviously very dark. We drove on dirt roads and very dense, a dense forested area, and a lot of vegetation. And within a couple of minutes, a group of 15 to 20 illegal immigrants came up out of the ditch and came up to the road when we pulled over. And of course, at that point, I'm staring at what I've only seen previously on TV, and staring at young children, young families, mostly women and children, some men, and they're basically turning themselves in. And as we drove around that night, we encountered probably another 3 groups of migrants who had been dropped off, probably by the cartel, almost certainly by the cartel, at the river's edge, as they've been trafficked, if you will, escorted across illegally into the United States of America. What I learned that night, and then the next day, as I got up early, went to a processing facility. I went to 2 processing facilities, met with the chief and the deputy chief and a whole bunch of officers, as well as several members of the United States Army that are facilitating and working with the Border Patrol, and learned just a lot of things, a lot of lessons that that frankly bothered me a great deal. Several of them include, of course, public policy. And the Border Patrol is being overwhelmed by a mission that's not really theirs. Their mission, let's face it, they signed up to be law enforcement officers to protect our country, to secure our country, to keep illegal immigration and illegal drugs and human trafficking and guns out of our country. Instead, they're processing people seeking asylum, people who are seeking asylum from 81 countries in the world. 81 countries. And it's really quite remarkable. The problem with that is that they're doing that while the traffickers and the gun runners and the drug pushers are flooding into the country, while our officers are facilitating asylum seekers. Asylum seekers to the tune of 1.7 million last year, shattering all previous records. And in addition to that, they estimate there are about 400,000 gotaways, what they call gotaways, except that's the ones they know about. They actually estimate that for every one of those, there's at least 2 more. So you're talking about now double the population of North Dakota just as gotaways. They take the 1.7 million. Obviously, that's 3 times the population nearly of our state. And that's what they're dealing with down there, and it's really unfortunate. Here's the problem: many times one of the conversations would turn to, but that policy doesn't make any sense. Why are they doing that? That doesn't make any sense at all. And then an agent would remind us, it makes perfect sense if your goal is to have a couple million or more illegal immigrants coming into the United States of America, and the policies of the country actually facilitating it. See, as a Midwesterner, as a conservative, as a law and order American who puts America first, I hear of the policies of the Biden administration, and I think, well, that doesn't make sense until you consider the goals of the Biden administration. The goals of the Biden administration are to allow at least 2 million illegal immigrants into the country every year. And while we're doing that, seemingly just looking the other way, as probably that many come across that we don't even know about. So it was very frustrating. There's a couple of takeaways, major takeaways. One is our Border Patrol agents are very frustrated. They're frustrated with the Biden administration's policies. They're frustrated that they did away with the Remain in Mexico policy. They're frustrated with the fact that they reinstated catch and release, which is really what they're helping to facilitate. They're frustrated by the fact that a wall that was being built that was actually working has suddenly stopped, and now and now there's no likelihood under this administration anyway that they'll be able to continue to build wall. All of which helped them do their jobs better and help keep Americans safe. They're very concerned about Title 42 being being thrown out by courts later in this session or early next year. That's really become the only tool they still have to at least send some people back based on public health. But they're very concerned that will be undone. And if that happens, they're expecting yet another record of illegal immigration into our country. And again, while they're facilitating the safe passage of asylum seekers, what they're not doing is patrolling and keeping the gun runners, the drug pushers, the human traffickers out of our country. Last year in the Rio Grande Valley sector alone, they said that they captured 2,000 what are called criminal aliens. That is, aliens who already have a criminal record of committing one of the top 5 most violent crimes in our country. And that includes rape, murder, assault. These are the bad people that are coming across that our brave men and women of the Border Patrol are capturing. I spent some time in a helicopter, nearly 2 hours, looking at how they utilize the aircraft, and it's part of their Air and Marine Division that assists the agents on the ground in finding some of these people who've gotten away, who have snuck through. It's really remarkable to watch them work. We're able to watch some apprehensions from the air and actually help facilitate identifying where they may be in that thick brush and that forested cover. So really quite an experience. I learned a lot. Spent a lot of time with landowners and ranchers as well, hearing their stories of illegals coming across onto their private land, cutting their fences, scattering their herds, the lack of safety and security that they feel right on their own land, only to be again facilitated by the Biden administration. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of work to do in convincing more Democrats that illegal immigration is the wrong policy, that facilitating it is completely upside down. I'm not sure what their purpose is in doing it, but we've got a lot of work to do. In the meantime, we have to keep pressure on our administration, on the president, and I sure wish he'd visit the border. I've made a couple of trips down there now. I've been sort of stunned by what I've seen, and I just wish that the president himself would make a trip down there. And in its over 40 years of public office, between being in the United States Senate, vice president, and now president, he's never been there. There's no record that he's ever been there. The vice president, Vice President Harris, was given the job of being the czar for border security and immigration security, and she's made one sort of minor trip down there. Obviously, it's not a high priority for them. It's a high priority for the American people, however. You know, one of the things that impressed me so much was at the processing facilities, and even frankly on the night patrols, was just the incredible compassion our Border Patrol officers demonstrate in dealing with these, particularly the children and the young families who are there. Granted, they're there illegally. They've been brought there by the Mexican cartels. They've paid to get there. They've walked hundreds, if not thousands of miles to get there to seek refuge in the United States of America. It's not their fault that Joe Biden has so screwed up our immigration policy that they felt welcomed by him, encouraged by him to be there. And these officers who are doing their best to keep us all safe and while carrying out a mission other than the one they signed up for, really do it with, like I said, great compassion, great understanding. It was very encouraging. I wrapped up my time there. It was really, for me, it was probably one of the higher privileges of my life, was to be asked to actually talk to the Border Patrol agents during their change of shift late on Friday night. And I didn't give a long policy speech. I just looked at every one of them and just told them how very much I love them and how much I support them, and how the vast majority of the American people, and certainly the good people of North Dakota, feel the same way that I do. And we're going to do everything we can to have their backs.